I'm going to start at the very beginning. My name is Séana. I was born 50 years ago, 13th of October 1971. An only girl, 3 brothers. And come from a very loving family background. I'm very blessed that way. And if anybody's ever heard of the 1,000-day theory, mine was pretty awesome in relation to the energy being love. I'm the only girl in the family of 4. I'd have been a girly girl, but I wasn't. I was more like a boy than my brothers were. Played football, stood up for them on the street, all the usual stuff. Never was into dolls or girly things or anything else, but I was always into babies. My wish in life was to get married and have babies, in that order, just because that's the way I wanted it to be. So 30 years ago this month, actually, on the 29th of August 1982, which is a numerical palindrome. Sorry, I did go off on wee tangents, but it was obviously meant to be. I did get married, and all I ever wanted after that was babies. So 11th of January 1993, less than 5 months after being married, I had my first wee positive pee on a stick, and that's where it began. So I'm 30 years now into this birth world experience from so many angles. Most recently being, I've now ticked off the nanny box as well. I have a beautiful grandson who's just a month old. So my own obstetric history, and I do feel it's important in a context situation. So my eldest was term plus 17, horrendous forceps delivery, all the drama you can think of and expect with a naive wee prim. Although even in those days, we didn't have Google or anything like that, so when I found out I was pregnant, the first place to go was the local library. And I did, and I watched videos, and I read books, and I read magazines, and one of the things that stuck out for me most was breast is best. Quite sort of simplistic in its explanation at that time, but I remember reading it and thinking, yeah, that's for me then. So that was my first venture into breastfeeding, but I'll keep that for later. Then my second pregnancy ended in the stillbirth of my first son, and that's a story in itself. He was actually my only normal delivery. That was my Keelan. Then my next pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, and around that time my dad became very ill, so it was a rough year. So you can imagine by my 4th pregnancy I was a bit nervy. So my 4th pregnancy was spent in fear, let's be honest, because I just thought out of 3 pregnancies I'd had 1 baby, so I was very fearful, which led me 37 weeks to beg the consultant just to section me and get my baby out when he was alive, when she was alive, sorry. So he did. He gave in to my, what I look back now was, mental health issues. I was just a terrified young woman. So that was daughter number 2. I then went on to have 2 more elective cesareans for my 2 live healthy sons. All my call, and I will give it to the consultant. He did try to encourage me to go back to normal, but I didn't. And I understand now those were all very much fear-based decisions. And I've had to detach from that through this process, through this journey of discovery into what birth and pregnancy is all about. I realise my decisions were totally fear-based, but I do believe in the phenomenological approach, and I suppose that's what helps you to understand other people when you've ticked those boxes yourself as well, But anyway, my youngest son was born 19 years ago this month, and he was out of them all, he was the only one completely exclusively breastfed. He never had formula milk, and knowing what I know now, none of them ever would have had. Sadly, they were all also vaccinated at that time. Even though I had wobbles and fears, I wasn't strong enough to have the courage of my convictions, but it was also one of the reasons why I was determined to breastfeed them all, because in my eyes, I thought, I'll breastfeed them through their vaccination process and then therefore protect them, you know. So innately I had a fear in relation to vaccinations, but I'll go back to that story. So then, while I was pregnant with my youngest, I became a peer breastfeeding support worker in the community. I was sort of renowned for being a breastfeeder at this stage, and there was a Sure Start programme. It was a new venture being brought to Northern Ireland at the time, and through my community links I was involved in the consultation period and setting up this programme for women and families across the north, particularly in South Armagh, which is where I lived at that time. So I was pregnant during that stage, and then breastfeeding my youngest son and going out helping other wee mummies. I was a peer breastfeeding support worker, so that was my first venture into the service provision sort of aspect of my life. There's Cooper getting in on the act. And it was through my journey at peer breastfeeding support worker that I heard about this new thing called direct entry midwifery. So in September 2004, I started my degree in midwifery. So I had 4 young children at the time, a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, and a husband who really didn't understand, but we'll leave that part of the story out. So anyway, moving on. The course I was doing was an honours degree in midwifery sciences at Queen's University Belfast. Direct entry midwifery. We were only the second cohort, and we were the first cohort ever go to the trust where I ended up working. And it shook them. You know, you could see from the outset the resistance even to the concept of direct entry midwifery, that somebody would dare to come in and think they could be a midwife without having been a nurse first. And I got many comments in relation to that, and that we would never be as good as those who were nurses first and all that nonsense. Anyhow, so the hill was steep even in those early years. Plus, like I said, 4 young children at home and all of that. But listen, when you're doing something you love, you find a way through it. And I have to say, my children were very resilient and very flexible, and God love them, they were so proud of their mommy, you know, who was a stay-at-home mommy all those years, and here she was going away to be a midwife because they knew I loved the babies, you know. So battled on, and I will say battled on through my 3-year studying. Ruffled a few feathers even in those early years, because I could see from the outset there's something just not right, a lot of things not right. And my lead at university, she used to encourage me, oh, put your head above the parapet, and absolutely, Shauna, don't be afraid to do that, you know, but it's not easy. Now, the same lady is now the head of the Royal College of Midwives in Northern Ireland. But that's a story in itself as well. She was the one who encouraged me to stand up for what I believed in, because what we were learning from the books was not what we were seeing in real life, and the mismatch was thought-provoking at the very least, you know. And I've thought about it more, particularly in recent years, but at the time I just thought, do people not understand that women are here to birth babies? You know, why all this interference and intervention? It never sat well with me. And because I'd done quite a bit of training in a midwifery-led unit, the first of its kind in this country actually, I was very privileged to be able to do that. So then when I went to areas like Delivery Suite, I couldn't understand the level of intervention, and the midwives who relied on the intervention, and the parents. You know, I'm not just levelling it all at the staff. The parents, they expected induction and demanded in cases, things like that, you know. But again, those are stories in themselves. I finally qualified with a first-class honours degree. It was important to me at the time because my academic success in my earlier life had been marred by my putting my own lights out. So I had set my sights on getting it first, and I did, and it was only important to me, nothing. So off I went out into the world of midwifery, but now I was qualified. So asking questions as a student was one thing, but when you were asking them as a qualified midwife, you were getting even more backs up. One consultant in particular, actually the one who I strong-armed into sectioning me all those years ago, he loved my questions as a student. He obviously pandered to his ego, but as a qualified member of staff, he wasn't so happy with me questioning everything. So this led me down to exploring other avenues. I went and done a nursing and midwifery development program, leadership program. And I went and done my union training, and I was a trade union rep for 10, 11 years, representing people, we done a lot of work within the trust. I was also at that stage doing a PhD at the time, so I was big into research and questions and data collection. So everybody in the trust knew my name, and in maternity, I don't mean that from an ego point of view. I mean, I was noticeable and impactful because I never stopped trying to help make things better for the trust. And then came 2017 and Baby P, and Baby P's story changed everything, I suppose. Baby P was a baby who was a sudden unexplained stillbirth at 35 weeks, less than 24 hours after his mother had the flu vaccine, and I was the midwife that she came in to report this to. Despite my raising many concerns through the notes, and I've been still requesting my excerpts from the notes to this day, which is being resisted. They ignored my concerns about the mother's vaccine within the previous 24 hours. So that led me down a route of doing a bit of independent research and whatever. Roll on the years, then along came COVID. Well, sure, that wakened many people up with a good slap, so no harm done there. And at that stage, I was away. I was at a conference in Dublin where they were talking about vaccines and pregnancy, and I realised they were just going to keep coming with these vaccines and pregnancy. I do believe there's a nefarious intent, but I believe many are unconscious co-conspirators or unwitting co-conspirators, whatever way you want to put it. But it beggars belief at this stage that any staff can look at the stats in relation to infertility, miscarriage, stillbirth, and not think, what the hell is going on here? Excuse my French. So my whistleblowing efforts of 2020 led to my suspension and subsequent resignation at my hearing before they sacked me. Anyway, and they since referred me to the NMC, who I've sat in front of 4 times. The NMC have now went through 5 barristers trying to get me off the register while I represent myself. And they haven't been able to do it because I haven't done anything wrong. I've crossed every T and dotted every I on the way. I've been the research student, the union rep, the midwife. I've ticked all those boxes, and I tried absolutely everything to get my concerns out there. And the more obstruction I met, the more I know I am right on the money here. So the case is ongoing. I haven't had a job. I haven't had a paid job since I resigned. They tried to ensure that I could never work again within the NHS, which I wouldn't by choice anyway. And I am absolutely more than excited to help to birth the new earth, because this is where we're at. This is where people realise women are here to have babies. We just have to lose the fear. It's all just evolving beautifully, and I have no fear. And that's, I suppose, what I want to try to help women and families realise. There is nothing to fear here. And once they become aware of that, well, awareness is the cure.